What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gong Labs Live, episode 18. I'm your host, Devin Reed, Content Strategy Manager here at Gong. Now, you know what it is. Every single week, we come together to bring you tips, tricks, and insights to help you as a sales professional be as successful as possible, close as many deals, book as many meetings. You get the idea. Now, first, we want to shout out the Gong Tribe, folks that are tuning in every single week, committing to getting better. Wouldn't have a show without you. Thank you very much. And also shout out to the new folks. If this is your first time, welcome to the show. I'm sure that you'll want to tune in again next week. Now, we are setting up an email subscription list. This will give you a calendar invite every single time that we're going live. That's Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you follow Gong on LinkedIn as well. And you'll also get an email every once in a while letting you know of future episodes coming up. Now, if you're looking for previous episodes, congratulations. You can now see them on our website. Jump over to the blog, click video. We got all of our on-demand episodes there. Now, for today, we have an interview with Adam Ochart, rising star here at Gong. But before we do, we have Brian Tucker, our leading enterprise sales rep, with our quick tips for closers.
Hey guys, Brian here. So my tip is I want to talk about a situation early on in a sales process that can be troublesome for any sales rep. And that's after you've had an initial discovery call with one person, a bigger meeting remote where you have 4 or 5 people on the other side of the line. It's typically hard to get these people engaged in the conversation and to really pull out objections or understand who your champions are. So my tip for you is prior to that meeting, look at everyone who's on the calendar invite, pull up their LinkedIn, and plan out your demo with some relevant questions that you specifically ask different folks in the meeting so that you get them engaged, you get them talking, and you have a natural conversation with multiple people as opposed to you just talking back and forth with the one person who tends to talk a little bit longer. That way, you can have a better demo, you can build some relationships, and you can win more often.
All right, so this week on Gong Labs Live, our interviewee is Adam Ochart, Senior SDR here at Gong. What's interesting about Adam is he doesn't have your traditional sales background and that he has no sales experience before he started at Gong a year ago, but that didn't stop him. Within a year, he climbed to senior status. He's working on our enterprise segment, and I believe you have the most outbound sourced revenue at the company. Is that true?
Yeah, your words, not mine, but I'm definitely happy to be here, man. I love the show.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you. This week, we're going to cover what Adam is also known for, which is the squeeze. You might be wondering what the squeeze is. We're going to get into that into a moment. But before we do, we have a giveaway this week. Our friends over at Tenbound are giving away 2 passes to their sales development conference. That's coming up August 23rd. It is the go-to place when it comes to learning, the current state of sales development, where it's headed. There's going to be senior leaders there, fireside chats, all the good things you'd hope would be there. So what we're going to do to win is go on LinkedIn after today's episode and post your number one thing that you like that Adam shared today. Could be an insight, could be a part of the squeeze, whatever it is. Tag both of us. Definitely make sure you tag me just so I can see it. And we're not going to do a raffle or anything. It's simple, sudden death. First person that tags, you win. Second person that tags, you win. I'll reach out and share you the ticket information. No pressure.
Got to move fast.
Absolutely. So with Adam, when it comes to the squeeze, I've heard in passing it's a 3-step process that will ensure that you handle any objection and book the meeting. Is that fair?
Yep.
Why don't you share with people what exactly that 3-step recipe is? We'll go through it. And then instead of hot takes, we have an objection hot takes, where I'm going to pull objections out of a bowl and you're going to use the squeeze. Does that sound good?
Let's do it live.
All right, man. So why don't you break down the squeeze for us?
Yeah, so I think the 10-second intro really is, you mentioned not having a sales background. And about 3 months into my role, my previous manager noticed that I was overcoming objections really well. Mm-hmm. Luckily, using the power of Gong, we went back and listened to some of those calls, and he noticed a specific trend. And that's something that we decided to scale out to a small part of the team.
Nice.
So we figured out that, this actually works, let's run with it. And really it starts with what a lot of times we reference as Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, it's a great book.
And the emotional power of mirroring. So that's that first step, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime you get any sort of objection, you mirror their language, you try to mirror their tone, their pace. And what we found this does is it actually loosens up that objection and allows them to open up for more. And that segues into the second part after the mirroring, and that is going to be some sort of open-ended question. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that mirroring is going to take their guard down. That open-ended question is going to put them in a position where Now they're going to give you a little more insight on what's actually relevant to them. And that leads to that third part, which is essentially some sort of call to action. And this is where we drive urgency. We kind of rearrange the way that we're pitching to add value, and we make sure it's relevant to what they're focused on.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's break that down a little bit more. So folks that might not know what mirroring is, mirroring is when you literally take the last word, maybe 2 or 3 of someone's sentence, and you inflect the hell out of it to make it a question. Right. So maybe give me an example. If I was like, hey Adam, thanks for calling, but I just don't have time right now.
Got it. You'd want to mirror simply by saying, got it. Sounds like you're busy. You don't have time right now. I'm curious. What are you focused on today? What's taking all your time?
Interesting. Okay. So it's using the last little bit of what I said, inflecting it, and kind of putting it back on them a little bit to expand on that.
Yeah. And what it does psychologically, and Chris Voss talks about this in his book, it essentially does 2 things. Number one, it shows that you're listening, and that's one of the most powerful tools because they now feel like they're being heard. And the second thing is it gives this sort of reciprocity where they now want to give back to you because you've been listening to them.
Absolutely. I love it. You labeled and mirrored actually too. So like it sounds like this, and then you mirrored it back to them. So I like that. Well, when it comes to an open-ended question, they're quite easy. It really just starts with how you start the question. So I always coach folks. I was coaching a lot of the SDRs not too long ago, starting with how and why. Or excuse me, how and what, not why. Do you have a different formula that you use? Is that what you kind of leverage to make sure you're asking open-ended questions that get long responses?
I think it comes down to anything that you cannot answer with a yes or a no.
Okay.
So I mean, the how and the why and the what, very, very strong ways to start those questions for sure.
Perfect. And then what's a call to action? Because I know that can be difficult, right? And so maybe you can take us through like an example, but a call to action to me is typically you want them to take a meeting, right? So is that always a call to action, or do you have something else that you can leverage as well?
I mean, I think as an SDR, your goal is to get a meeting. So that's usually where we want to go with it. Organically, things can change. Maybe it's an introduction to someone else. But the reality is what you want to do is summarize everything you've learned and then use their language in asking them something. So mentioning, you talked about you're busy, right? Or you don't have time. Well, it sounds like you don't have time right now, but it sounds like that's deriving from the fact you're onboarding reps quickly. Given that that's our sweet spot and how we help sales leaders, it sounds like we should set up some time to connect. And by using their language, tie it into a value prop that now is relevant, it greatly increases the chance that you get that meeting.
So it sounds like the key to this is really just uncovering the context behind the objection.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
All right, cool. Do you have a good story maybe recently? I know it floats around the office from time to time. We see it in Slack. Adam just put someone in the squeeze, got the meeting. Do you have a recent example you can run through with us?
Yeah, there was a sales leader who told me several times he was not interested. And I, to be honest, wasn't using my tactic originally, and I finally fell back to it. And I just asked him the very blunt question about it sounds like you're not interested. What about what we do is not interesting to you? And he kind of fumbled on, I guess you guys do this and you do
now
this.
He has to have a good response.
Yeah, he couldn't come up with anything, and he kind of chuckled, and he took his calendar out and booked it right in front of me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it came full circle. It worked really well.
That's great. Is the squeeze, this formula, is it only for phone conversations, or does it work over email?
It definitely works over email. Obviously, there's more complexity to how you format the email. I personally love the phones.
I know, I've heard.
But yeah, it definitely works in the email. In terms of mirroring and stuff along those lines, it definitely works.
All right. Well, I think what might be helpful is if we have a bowl of objections here.
Let's do it.
I don't know if we'll have time for all of them. So Adam, we've all heard these objections that I've written down. They're the more common ones, but Adam hasn't seen them. So it will be a bit of a surprise for you. I was going to let you pick them out, but I guess I give you the upper hand. You wouldn't really read it, so I'll read them to you. How's that sound? All right, first one we have, hey Adam, thanks for the call. I don't have any budget.
Got it. So it sounds like your budget's tied up in other ways. Just for my notes, where have you been focusing and allocating your budget?
I'll play ball here. We're spending a lot on lead gen tools, lead lists, data cleansing, all that type of stuff.
Got it. So it sounds like you're focused a lot on that top of the funnel, getting a lot of leads in?
100%.
Cool. Well, I think there's really 2 levers you can pull here, and that's top of the funnel, and that's the number of leads, and then the quality of converting those leads. And that's really where we come in. So we want to make sure you capitalize on those leads as they come in. And that's essentially where I'd go from there and try to get them to call to action. And
then I'm sure it goes down to a bit of a conversation, right? The key is to break down the objection, move to a conversation, and then throw your call to action in there.
Exactly.
And that was smooth. It's almost like you've heard that one before, maybe.
Yeah, maybe once or twice.
All right. Okay, Adam, would love to chat, but I'm walking in a meeting right now. Can't talk.
Got it. This one's funny. I gotta actually pause on this one because the reality is, and someone can comment on LinkedIn and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that decision makers pick up their phones as they're walking into meetings.
I agree. Or so, not in the middle of a meeting for sure. Which is like when you call it like it's 11:23, right? Whatever time it is a.m. No one's walking into a meeting. What time does the meeting start? 11:25? Like that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. This one I think that you can mirror and kind of blow right through it. So God, it sounds like I caught you at a bad time. You're walking into a meeting. Considering I have you on the phone, I'm curious, and then you go into your value prop.
So you kind of just curve it and keep going?
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I've called people out before too. I don't know if I suggest that to our viewers, but just asking what time does that meeting start? Because it's an abnormal time. I've heard people be like start to fumble a little bit, and I'll just be like, hey, I don't want to put you on the spot. What's a better time after this meeting? So it's kind of like, hey, I'm not buying this, but I'll play ball a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one we've all heard. Adam, thanks for the call. I'm not the decision maker. I am not the decision maker.
Got it. Sounds like you're not the person that makes these decisions. I'm curious, who in your organization would be the best person to talk to?
Reach out to Mark Wahlberg.
Got it.
CRO.
Got it. threw me a curveball there. So this one actually is a little bit tough because how you approach this is different based on where you're selling and who you're selling to.
Sure.
What I will say is a lot of times that becomes an educational sell. And we need to educate that person on why they're the buyer.
Interesting.
So in our instance, the way that I would combat that is I would then ask them, I'm curious, are you directly tied to revenue attainment? Because we're selling to sales leaders.
Sure.
Got it. And given what we do, that's really the bread and butter of who we impact. So I'm curious, like, what are you focused on as you try to help your team attain revenue?
Got it. Okay, I like that. So I'm breaking, by the way. I'm not going to continue to pretend I work for Mark Wahlberg. But I like it because what you're doing is you're always labeling and then mirroring it back to them. In this scenario, it sounds like you kind of know, like if it's a CRO for Gong, for example, you know it's the senior leader that's going to sign off on this. You're actually, like you said, you're educating them that actually this is for you. Here's why it's for you, right? And getting into that conversational mode. What if it's like a director or VP and maybe they're right and they're not the decision maker? Is there a different route that you take?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to state that like decision makers typically say they're not decision makers. And I think that it comes down to just ensuring that what they're focused on is relevant to what you're selling and asking those questions that are like, whatever the value prop that your company has, ask them questions along those lines. Like, is this something you're focused on? I think the reality is, and this is kind of broader picture, a lot of people that we're selling to will have objections just to kind of like trim down the amount of people that get through the gates.
Sure.
So that first objection, if you can mirror them and reply to it saying, okay, got it. So it sounds like you're not the DM. Well, I'm curious, like, is revenue attainment something you're focused on, or do you lead the team over at X company?
Yeah.
By saying that, you're going to open the door and start a conversation and make it conversational.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing is just you can't fold and just assume that like, okay, got it. Let me go talk to someone else.
Well, there's two things that you said that was interesting. One is you're kind of making them qualify themselves into the conversation. And the other one is that a lot of decision makers have that kind of go-to thing. Like if I'm getting called 3 times a day by Adam or other SDRs, I'm probably have that go-to thing I just lie about all the time, which I guess I can't talk, man, going into a meeting, send me an email. So you're kind of saying like, hey, everyone has that first, almost like a facade objection. As long as you don't fold, you can get to what the real meat of it is.
Yep, exactly.
All right, I like it. All right, we got one more.
All right, I'm like getting hot. This is tough.
It's the ultimate hot seat. I think you answered this one. Let me see what the last one is. I think we've already kind of talked about that one. I'll just, we already talked about this, so I'll take the second one. So you know what, I'm interested. I've heard of Gong, but the timing's no good right now, man. Call me in Q1.
Got it. Yeah, no, it sounds like we definitely have a value prop that you're interested in, but timing isn't right. I'm curious, what are you focused on right now? Where's your time focused?
My time is focused on ramping my team, and we got a new methodology we're rolling out right now.
Got it. Absolutely. That's exciting. What methodology are you working on?
We're a big fan of corporate visions.
Cool. Yeah. No, I've heard a lot of good things about corporate visions. Once you roll that methodology out, I'm curious, how are you going to make sure it's tracked across your team?
I'm feeling my pressure on my heels a little bit here. I've got my sales managers in the field, sales enablement. They're gonna make sure that we adopt it.
Cool. I'll break character here, but this is typically where I'd go into a story and I'd tell a customer story that's relevant, where we've actually sold to customers for that exact use case.
Right.
And the beauty is by mirroring him and saying, or him or her, and saying like, yeah, it sounds like you're not focused right now because you're doing other things. I got a really valuable piece of information that I could tie a story to that would probably appeal to that sales leader.
Right.
And that'd give me an opportunity to get a meeting.
That's awesome. We talk about customer stories a lot here. Do you have, I won't put you on the spot to tell one, but what are kind of the things of, It sounds like you have your use case, so you know which one to focus on. Do you focus on persona, just the use case, I don't know, company size? Like, what are kind of the identifiers that you leverage for your customer stories?
Yeah, that's really good. I think that there's a Gong Labs a Gong Labs article that Chris Orlob wrote a long time ago about tribal selling.
Yeah.
So find out who's in the circle that this sales leader probably looks to in terms of their network. It could be someone that they potentially mentor. It could be geographical. So it could be who are they located around.
Sure.
Similar size, specific space, maybe who they sell with. But when you can kind of find that circle around them and make them really believe that everyone around them is doing or going with your product, they'll then feel like they'll get FOMO and want to understand really the why and the what.
Got it.
So that's really how I try to cater my customer stories.
I like it.
Sweet.
All right, well, there you have it. So recap the 3 steps for us one more time with the squeeze.
Yep, so you got mirror, you got loaded question, and then drive urgency with a call to action.
I love it. So remember, if you want to win your passes to the 10-Bound Sales Development Conference, go on LinkedIn right now, because the first to strike wins. Go ahead and tag myself, Devin Reed, and the number one thing that you like or your favorite takeaway from what Adam shared today, and I'll make sure to shoot you over that ticket. Thanks for joining, and thank you for joining as well.
Awesome. Sweet,
all right.
Man.
All right, there you have it for this week's episode. Hopefully you picked up some tips from Brian and Adam, and make sure that you post on LinkedIn to get those free conference tickets. Now, as always, we wrap up with our sales meme of the week. When the new salesperson gets their first objection, hopefully you don't look like that. Hopefully you learn from the squeeze and handling objections like a pro. Remember to tune in next week, Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. See you then.